how does beer affect your blood glucose and ketone readings while you are on a low-carb or ketogenic diet? Well, we drank beer in the name of science to bring you the results of that question. And so what we did was we set up a little experiment in this way. We came up with a hypothesis, gathered the materials and methods to test that hypothesis, and got our results, and we're going to interpret those results for you in this video. So you want to start with the hypothesis that we had?
First of all, as Melissa said, yay science. So our hypothesis is that a low-carb beer will have a minimal effect on our ketones and glucose and not have a detrimental effect being on a ketogenic diet.
Okay. And so in order to test that, we picked two beers. So one is a Michelob Ultra. It's a very low-carb beer. I think it has like 2.6 carbs in it. And we tested that against a full-bodied beer, Yuengling Lager, which I believe has 13 carbs in it, slightly higher alcohol than this one.
Slightly.
Right. And so we spent the afternoon here. We did not eat for 4 hours before the test. We did not drink anything for 2 hours before the test. And we took
that means coffee, not beer or alcohol.
Right. We didn't drink anything.
Right.
Did you drink anything, even water?
No.
Okay. We took a baseline reading of our blood glucose and ketones and then drank a beer. Now, obviously, we did this over 2 days, right? So we did one day was the light beer, another day was the full-bodied beer. After drinking the beer, we tested our glucose and ketones again at 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 120 minutes.
Right.
Did I cover everything?
I think you did.
All right, and so here were the results that we had for the Michelob Ultra. You want to start with those?
Yep, we'll start that. So we'll start with the ketones. So Becky's baseline ketones at 0 minutes were 1.4, where you went to 1.3 at 30 minutes, 1.4 at 60 minutes, and 1.3 at 120 minutes. So you just really didn't do anything. Ketones stayed right where they were. My ketones started at 1.4, which was, very good for me.
Very good for you.
Stayed at 1.4, which was like surprising. Dropped a little bit to 1.0 and then to 0.9 at the 2-hour mark. So for me, that's a huge win. I stayed in ketosis for that time. It did drop a little bit. Glucose with the Michelob Ultra. So you started at 61, you went up a little bit to 70, and then down to 61, and then bounced up a little bit to 65. So again, insignificant, as far as those changes go. My glucose started at 72, and I actually dropped 15 points to 57 at the 30-minute mark. So that kind of borders on being maybe a little significant.
Yeah.
But it bounced back to 65 at 60 minutes and 76, so I was very close to where I started at the end of the 2 hours. Again, pretty minimal changes there. I mean, nothing earth-shattering.
Right.
So let's talk about the Yuengling Lager. Your ketones started at 0.9, went up a little bit to 1.1, but then it came down to 0.7, and then at 0.4 at 120 minutes. So at 2-hour mark, you were kind of officially out of ketosis, based on your kind of numbers.
Right, which is rare for me. If you've been following our channel, we test a lot of different things. It's rare for something to really knock me out of ketosis. Yeah. So that piqued my interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I started at 0.4, which for me, we kind of feel like that maybe like for my body type and being in ketosis for this long. I'm probably just in ketosis there.
That's a little bit more normal for you to be in.
A little more normal, yeah. My numbers. I stayed at 0.4 for 30 minutes, and then I dropped to 0.3, and I dropped to 0.2 at 120 minutes. So I was officially not in ketosis anymore. So glucose, these are pretty interesting results too. So you started at 77, you jumped up to 106, and you continued to go up to 122 then at the 60-minute mark, and then it dropped down to 90.
Right.
My glucose numbers were pretty interesting too. So I started at 86, and at 30 minutes I jumped to 134, nearly a 50-point jump there. That's huge. The interesting thing though is that at 60 minutes I had dropped back down to 85, and at the 120-minute mark, I was down to 70. Almost gives the impression that I had like kind of a quote-unquote normal, insulin response to a carb, right?
Right. Which, here again, if you follow us, Keith often has, has a history of being very insulin resistant.
Very.
So does this mean that maybe your body's becoming a little bit more insulin sensitive? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's
when it comes to beer, maybe. I don't know. Well. Let's talk about what we think is going on here. We know that alcohol is going to kind of put the brakes on gluconeogenesis, your liver making glucose to keep it level at a point. Most diabetics understand this. It's a well-known fact that if you're a diabetic, you really have to watch your consumption of alcohol because you can become hypoglycemic pretty easily. So we feel that with the Michelob Ultra, the very light beer, we didn't have much of an effect on our ketones. We didn't have much of an effect on our glucose. Things just kind of stayed the same.
Right.
Can't be said for the full-bodied beer. The glucose, now, when we first started our baseline, you were at 77, I was at 86. So when we had that beer, that should have kind of put the brakes on gluconeogenesis in our body. But we actually fed ourselves carbohydrates in the beer, and that caused the blood glucose to spike, and along with that, an insulin response.
Right. So our insulin most likely went up, and what happens when insulin goes up? Ketones
come down. And that kind of bears it out. And that's just, again, we're two different metabolisms, two different people. This is, in our stringent kitchen lab. Right. So, take from that what you want to. But, the big question is, if you're on a ketogenic diet, can you have a beer?
Right.
And, I think we're not promoting, drinking alcohol or that, but a lot of people ask the question. I've enjoyed a Michelob Ultra for a long time.
Right. Well, and that I think maybe is the takeaway of what we have here. So if you do choose to drink beer on your low-carb or ketogenic diet, from our test results here, it is a much better choice to go with a low-carb beer. And actually, I'm going to add to that what you were just alluding to, that not only from our test is that a good idea, but also from Keith's experience. So if you've been following us, Keith lost 80 pounds following a very low-carb ketogenic style diet and drank Michelob Ultra during that entire time that you were losing that 80 pounds.
Probably nearly every day.
Yeah. So when Keith gets home from work, when we both are finished with our work day, we sit down together, have a couple of beers before dinner, which might be significant. Might be a significant factor. It's not while we eat or after dinner; it's before dinner. But we have done that while Keith lost his whole 80 pounds. Can I share kind of the funny?
Yeah.
Why don't you share it?
So my brilliant idea, and I was 3 or 4 months into this originally, was that I'm going to speed up my weight loss. I'm going to stop having any beer for like a week or so. I think I figured that I could go a couple of weeks, and if I was, I could even push it further if I was having some good weight loss.
Right. And what happened during that week that you gave up beer?
This is the only time I plateaued and didn't lose any weight.
It was literally the only plateau.
0 pounds lost.
I know.
Yeah, not even an ounce.
I know, it was crazy.
Yeah. So thank you, beer.
So anyway, and I will end with this thought. Now, this is one beer. It's not 2 beers. It's not 3 beers. And when you do drink alcohol in any amount, it is going to lower your inhibitions, which will open the door to possibly giving into some cravings and things like that. So there's more to consider on your diet than what it's doing to your blood glucose and ketones. That's the one facet that we're looking at in this video, though.
Yeah, there are behavioral issues, obviously, that come along with it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So for what it is worth, I hope that helps you out and answers some questions for you. Thanks so much for watching. We will test other alcohols in the coming months. So you don't need to ask, right? So thanks so much for watching. Hey, please subscribe, and we will be back soon with some more tests and more videos to help you reach your goal. Thanks.
That's it.